Thanks for joining me for a discussion on personalization for the wavering travel customer using AWS Personalize. This video is intended for the customer experience or marketer leader that is interested in adopting personalization to solve, I think, an interesting, challenging travel question, which is this rapidly changing customer intent problem. So I'll set a bit of the stage for you on the context here for personalization and travel. From there, I'll move on to a live demo on a fictitious travel website. And from there, I'll actually dive into AWS Personalize, how that was configured. And finally, I'll leave you with a few recommendations on how to go about implementing a solution like this and some other use cases and scenarios that you might want to consider. So a great place to start in terms of thinking about customer experience and personalization is this video from a recent reInvent conference hosted by Amazon. Great presentation from United Airlines. And part of that presentation includes this brief overview of the way they think about customer experience for their customers' life cycle as they go through a trip. So we're going to be focused on the inspire portion, which is sort of the research portion of a customer's experience. Of course, personalization is relevant for these other parts of the life cycle, including booking, the in-airport experience, the onboard experience, and post-travel. But great video, definitely worth a look there for more on Personalize and United's specific situation there. So what's the specific challenge when it comes to travel and that personalization for that kind of research phase? Well, relevancy is the big one. It's easy to just recommend the most popular hotels. Of course, that's not terribly relevant, and it's not going to lead to engagement, clicks, and ultimately revenue from your customers. Secondly, there are a lot of hotels. There's new hotels, destinations, and travel packages added daily as a minimum. So you have this cold start problem for any type of model where there's constantly new hotels and destinations added. They need to surface to in front of the customer so that the model can be trained. So that introduces a challenge there. Third piece is there's a lot of data in the travel industry, especially when we're talking about channels like web and clickstream. Traditionally, that's required a lot of infrastructure, a lot of expertise in terms of working with data, but also building, training, and maintaining models. So all of these are AWS Personalize and AWS addresses these challenges in different ways, and I'm going to talk about each of them as I walk through. But we'll start with the first one, relevancy, before I jump into the e-commerce demo. Is the, again this rapidly changing customer intent problem. It's particularly acute for the travel industry. And so here's two scenarios to set the stage to help to think about that. So if we think about a recommendation engine, obviously, we wanted to look at the history of what's happened there, but we also want it to be based on what's happening here and now, kind of that real-time scenario. So in the top scenario of this example, we've got someone who's clicked on three different hotels or resorts in Mexico. They've suddenly switched to a Jamaica hotel. What is the right recommendation at that point? In this case, the right answer is another Jamaican hotel. That's where we've seen a higher propensity to click on that, higher click-through rate. In the second scenario, it looks very similar, but you can see there's a history of this person looking at a Jamaican resort before, in this case, Sandals, Montego Bay. In that case, the right answer, according to this example, is to stay on the Mexico theme. This is more of a blip. Let's make a recommendation there. So this is an example of the sort of types of recommendations and nuances that a particular model, in this case what AWS Personalize calls a recipe, called the hierarchical recurring neural network, which is a bit of a mouthful. Of course, the beauty of AWS Personalize, you don't need to understand how that works or be a data scientist. You just need to have the expertise around how to implement that. So this is an example of the theoretical to this. I'm going to show you next how a scenario like these two actually works using a mock website. So we'll move on to that now. All right, welcome to our fictitious travel website, Spadina Bus Travel. So I've logged into with a user here that has a history of looking at inexpensive hotels, and what we're going to do is see how quickly AWS Personalize will react to that, to me changing the intent of this user from inexpensive to expensive, and see if we can reverse the process and how long that will take. So if I go to our homepage here, you'll see some recommendations like fan favorites or bestsellers that probably are not that dissimilar to what you may already have on your site, or things that are coming out of your marketing automation system, other recommendation tools. What we're trying to do is increase the relevancy, have it change in real time, because we know that has an impact on leading indicators like customer engagement and click-through rates. We know that solutions like AWS Personalize tend to have a lift that is anywhere between 15 or 30% kind of in that first 30 days. And this is why 30% of Amazon, the retail site's traffic, are generated from recommendations, because they're highly relevant and it's powered by some of the technology, same technology as AWS Personalize. So these are the out of the box recommendations that come with this e-commerce platform we've set up here. At the bottom are recommendations coming from AWS Personalize. So because this user has a history of looking at inexpensive hotels, these are in descending order. You can see the top three are quite inexpensive. So we got an $1,100 two-star resort, $1,500, $1,200. Again, the two-star less expensive resort. So that's the recommendation that's given based on that history. So let's see what happens if we go to our shop here, which is our list of hotels. And you can see there's 10 hotels in this shop. And the reason I did that is to make AWS Personalize more traceable, more explainable. Anytime you're working with AI or machine learning, it can be challenging to explain, well, why did it do this? In an effort to make it more explainable, I've reduced the number of products, or in this case, hotels, to 10. The solution, of course, does scale into the tens or hundreds of thousands of products and is able to scale to service millions of customers. But for our purposes here, I stuck with 10 to make it easy to understand. So I'm going to sort our hotels from a high price to low, and I'm going to start clicking on the more expensive resorts and see how our recommendations change. So I'm going to click on the most expensive one, which is this five-star Mexico resort, $5,000. It sounds like a nice place to go. And I'm going to go back to our home page now that I've clicked there. That data has been sent to AWS Personalize, and instantly we can see there's a bit of a change in the recommendations here. We still have a very inexpensive hotel that's the top recommendation. In fact, that's the least expensive one on the list. But we are starting to see more expensive resorts start to trickle up to the second and third recommendation slot. So let's see what happens if I click on yet another expensive hotel. So I'll try sorting again from high to low, and I'm going to click under this $3,500 expensive four-star Mexico resort, and I'll go back to my home page to see and scroll down to see what kind of recommendations we get. So our top recommendation has changed after those two clicks. So it's the 3,500 for the four-star Mexico resort. But because of all of that history of looking at Mexico inexpensive resorts in the past, I still have a number two position for a very inexpensive resort that's there. So let's see if I can click again and see if we can move this inexpensive recommendation even further down the list of recommendations. So I'll go to shop, I'll go to high to low, and I'll try clicking on, again, this $5,000 resort, the most expensive one on the list. I'll go back to the home page, scroll down, and there we have it. So we've got the top three recommendations are more expensive hotels. The most expensive resort is the number two position right now. So it took me several clicks to get to that point. So let's see how long it will take me to reverse the process and start to get back to the inexpensive hotels. Again, this is what someone would typically do when they're researching hotels. There's this rapid changing of intent, and the recipe has to be able to keep up with that. So I'll go to low to high. We'll go with this Sandals Montego Bay two-star $1,200 resort, and I'll go back to the home page. Again, scroll down, and so we've got not much of a change at this point here, but let's continue clicking on the the less expensive resorts and see how that changes our recommendation. So I'll go low to high, and I'll pick the least expensive resort in the list again. I'll go back to my home page, and so there we have again a reversal. So we've got that very inexpensive hotel coming back to the number one position. We only see something that's a little more middle of the road into that third position. So that's the type of agility and ability to tolerate that rapid changing of intent that your personalization solution will need. Okay, so we've seen our working example of AWS Personalize on the web channel for our mock travel website. How do things work with AWS Personalize? What do I need to do? So we've logged into the AWS Management Console. I'm going to be clicking on Amazon Personalize here. So my intent is not to show you everything about this. What I'd like you to take away is it's point and click. You don't need to be a data scientist, and a couple key concepts that we use to configure our demonstration. So this is a dataset group called travel that we've used for the demo. I'm going to create a new one so you can see what a dataset group looks like and what it is. So we'll call that demo. And I'm just going to do a couple clicks here to take us to um, this dashboard, which is kind of like a wizard interface to help guide you through the process of setting this up. So the one key concept that you'll need to understand is this idea of data sets. So there's three, user data, item data, and user item interaction data. So what are those? So we'll click under item data, and you can see what's happening here is we're defining a schema for essentially our hotels. So we've got a hotel name, we've got the destination, number of stars, features like is there a pool or airport shuttle. This is the scariest code looking type thing you would need to do in the console. It's really not code, it's just a definition of the data that we're ingesting about the hotels here. So that's what the item data set looks like. The other two are user data, which is just the demographic data, and the user item interaction data is our clickstream. So that's the most technical and data intensive portion of setting this up in the console you need to worry about. The second concept that I'd like to show you is one that I've already talked about in this video, which is this idea of recipes. And so the location where we configure that is under solutions. So I'm going to say create solution, and I'm going to say this is my new test solution. And um, what's here is you can see there's a list of recipes. So the recipe or model that we used for this demonstration is the HRNN metadata. Reason it says metadata is we did include information about the hotels, those dimensions of the hotels, plus some user demographic information. Of course, it's not required. You can use a pure clickstream implementation of this. So these are the recipes. You don't need to be a data scientist to configure them or maintain them or monitor them. And of course, new recipes are added in future. So those are the two key concepts. You need to worry about your data sets, and you do need to worry about picking a solution for your AWS personalized implementation. So from here, I'm going to talk to you about some implementation recommendations and a few other tips about other use cases and channels that you may want to consider. All right, let's close with some implementation tips and some recommendations for what you might want to do next with AWS Personalized. So the first thing is to take advantage of free trials and the pay-as-you-go model that's part of the AWS ecosystem. So as of this recording, there is a free trial for 2 months with AWS Personalize. The way that the pricing works there is it's based on the time to train models, and it's also based on the time that your solution is up and running. In our case, so for the demonstration, how long you are serving up recommendations to the web channel. In my experience with some modest volumes, I found that the pricing worked out to be more like hundreds of dollars per month as opposed to the thousands per month that you might expect from similar solutions in the marketplace. So again, it's take advantage of the pay-as-you-go pricing. There's no contract for 3 years that you have to sign for many of the other solutions, and you're able to quickly do a proof of concept or pilot to show that it's demonstrating value. So that's the first recommendation. Second is travel is complicated. So pick one product at a time, whether it's hotels, flights, or packages, excursions. Um, it's challenging enough to get personalization done right. Pick a single product area and travel to get that working before you move on to the next one. Third thing is AWS Personalize. Although I didn't show you in the console details around how the API works and so on, it's a very flexible solution that can integrate with investments you've already made or you're planning to make. So those might be things that are integral to your customer experience or marketing ecosystem. They could be from vendors like Adobe or Salesforce, for example. So AWS Personalize is open and flexible and able to play nicely with tools such as those. And the last thing that I'll leave you with is take one channel at a time. So the example that we took was the inbound web channel, but it is also possible to use AWS Personalize in outbound channels, and that'll be the topic of our next video on this subject. So I'll show you just briefly. There's this blog article, or this, I should say, this AWS solution called Predictive User Engagement. We'll be diving deep into this, which is centered around a integration between Personalize and something called AWS Pinpoint, which is the outbound customer engagement solution from Amazon. So this would enable you to take those recommendations and use them for marketing communications or transactional communications um, using SMS or email or even a interactive voice chatbot, for example. So with that, I'll just leave you with our contact information here. So please reach out at spadinabus.com/contact if you'd like to have a conversation about anything we've shared here, or you'd like to discuss your plans for AWS Personalize. We'd love to have a conversation about that. Have a great day.